All right, so I wanted to start taping a little intro in front of these podcasts just to give you a little summary of what you're going to hear. So I had the pleasure of sitting down with my sister-in-law, Therese, for what I feel was a very heartfelt conversation where we reminisced about our shared love for tennis, and she really got to explore and talk about the impact sports had on her upbringing. We really delved into the physical nature of soccer, how it developed her skills, and how those skills became useful in other sports like tennis, and how her father really encouraged her and her siblings, which happens to be my wife, as one of her siblings is her sister. They had 5 children. How her father really encouraged her to participate in sports, and that really led to Therese excelling in the sport she played in as she was young, and also excelling in her business. Although we didn't really talk much about her business, I am gonna note it in the in some hashtags in the Instagram, and so go check that out. She has a really good business. It's more female adult oriented, but you'll see what I mean when you see it. It's not bad. I didn't mean to pique your interest in a bad way. But as our discussion continued, we really got to navigate into the world of country club tennis and how she sort of saw some class barriers there, and how how it became a little tough for her to continue to attempt to go into that country club life, which, I think can be tough for a lot of us that sort of grew up without means. So she also talked about a lot about family, her father. She shares things of her older brother, how he inspired her to really pursue tennis and their rivalries, and how that helped her and pushed her to improve. And so we touch on that, and we really touch on the importance of embracing individual personalities with sports. She really talks about how she sort of is pushed a certain way on watching certain people in sports because of their personalities, and I really feel the same way. And so I think she really gives some good points on how tennis has to evolve and change, and I really feel the same way. We tackle the emotional and mental aspects of the sport. She actually turns it on me, on the interviewer, and she really starts asking me questions, and I start having to analyze things about my own life. So it gets a little interesting. But she's very open about her experiences and the impact tennis had on her emotional development, both in her personal and work life. And throughout this conversation, we really explore the importance of having a supportive community, the power that positive thinking really has on the role in sports, and how positive thinking really plays a role in self-improvement too. So not just sports, but self-improvement as well. Excuse me. Um, but she really talks about how it's so crucial in our personal lives. And so I really appreciate that part of this podcast where we start examining ourselves. And so don't miss this opportunity to listen to a person who has a lot of insight in life. It's a good conversation. We dive into the world of sports and other lessons that can be learned from her experiences on and off the court. So I entitled this podcast From Court to Character, and the strength that people find in tennis and in family. So I hope you enjoy.
You are listening to Your League Tennis Podcast with your host, Anthony Radonia. Anthony's an avid weekend warrior tennis player, just like you. Every week, he'll be interviewing new and exciting guests that will not only differ in experience and skill level, but also in age and physical ability. Your League Tennis Podcast is about making you a better tennis player. Whether you're a beginner or have been playing for years, in your 20s or in your 60s. Now, here is your host, Anthony Radonia.
Ow! All right, Therese.
How much did you pay for those people to clap for you?
Those people, a lot.
I need to pay them too for myself.
This thing was such a pain in the butt to learn. Like, have you ever seen these things?
No,
like,
I mean, it's like you're a DJ.
Yeah, no, that's what they did.
Yeah.
They use this for music too.
So cool.
Yeah. So, it took me a long time to learn it, but now it's pretty easy. So, but thank you. You're here for the weekend visiting anyways. So
Yeah.
I figured, why not? Let's talk.
Yeah.
So this is cool. A little intro for you and then for anyone like watching, I guess. So you sort of know what I attempt to do here.
I mean, sort of.
Sort of. So at first, I think it sort of morphed into something different. At first, I was more focused on like, give me a tip on a forehand or something, right?
Right.
And I think it sort of morphed, for me at least, into like, you play tennis, but you also have a life. I just want to learn about you. So that's really what it turned into. And I'm more excited about that. Like lately, like my last one was with my friend Tom, who actually went in a coma. You better have a better story to top that, by the way. Yeah, no
Shoot.
comas?
No comas.
Oh, dang it. But yeah, so just stuff like that. You know, he had a different story, like how he, anyways. But that's where my interest has sort of lied now, where just learning about you, your family, your love for tennis, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about that. But, you don't have to feel like you have to give me tips or anything, but I'm more than happy to accept them every single time if you have some.
I don't have any tips for you, but I'm good at critiquing.
Oh, good. Then maybe, see? Then
kidding.
maybe we'll do that. We'll talk about me a little. And
No,
you could
actually,
critique me.
this is cool. I think tennis is a great way to connect to people, and that's how I remember it. Because I'm not avidly playing like you and Denise are anymore. But it was when I was really playing. It's a time in my life that was so fun, and I played like 7 days a week, and never got sick of it until just necks and shoulders and just the rigmarole of working and life gets in the way. But truthfully, if my boyfriend or husband, I only have one husband, but boyfriends at the time didn't play, I sort of didn't play, which was kind of dumb. But I always played with dudes since I was little. Since like my dad was like, come on, let's play tennis. And then just the competitive nature of our family, just trying to beat my older brother was always the end game, which never happened.
So you have two brothers.
Yeah.
And I'm married to one of your sisters. You have two sisters. And so your dad, Al, he put you all into sports, or how did that sort of start?
Look, 5 kids, menace, at home. They're like, get out of the house. Like, remember, like that at that time, I'm in my 40s now, you weren't allowed to really be in the house. You had to be out of the house. So we always, they always pushed us to do sports just so they could have a break. But really, my dad was an avid fan and then also wanted to play. So it wasn't just about him like cheering you on. It was like him cheering you on and then, can I play?
Yep,
It's kind of like that. Yeah.
So did he play sports when he was young? Do you know?
He was a genius musician, band nerd. I mean, and I love music, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of classified as a band nerd. That's what he used to tell us. So for him, sports came later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through his kids.
Yeah, and what's funny is he had the most athletic kids. Well, in terms of in comparison to him.
Yeah. So what did you start out playing? Like probably soccer?
Soccer. They put us in everything. Soccer, softball, tennis, basketball, dance, And I knew when I could see like Denise and Candace like doing back walkovers, like I knew that gymnastics, dance, that wasn't going to be for me. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was like born as an inflexible human. Like like my splits are terrible. But what started to come really naturally for Denise and myself was soccer. So we both kind of just started to excel at soccer, and I started traveling at like 8 years old.
Which is funny because I was never really into soccer, but only recently I started going to see live matches. One of my friend's son plays in it.
Yeah.
And I never realized how physical that sport is.
Oh, no.
And I apologize to soccer people who are probably like, yeah, moron. but it is so crazy physical. And the reason I'm bringing that up is when I watch Denise play tennis, she is a monster. And I wish I had more of that.
Yeah, and like as we talk about it, I feel like soccer was a huge reason why I at least got as far as I could without actually taking a real tennis lesson. And then because the footwork was there, and so you're fast, you can anticipate. I think anticipate's a big word in tennis because if you couldn't anticipate and like get there, you're never gonna be good. You're never gonna be fun to play with.
Yeah.
So yeah, soccer played a big role in why it was a little easier to transition into something like tennis. If that wasn't innate to me, tennis kind of came later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like basketball, tennis, soccer. Those sports really are a long distance plus sprinting.
Yeah,
incorporated. So I think football obviously they're sprinting. I don't know if you can consider football long distance. A lot of short spurts, right?
yeah.
Baseball, I don't know.
Baseball, come on. No. I love any baseball as a kid, but no, you don't have to.
No, you can sit down, drink a beer.
You totally can. Sorry, Russ, my brother, big baseball guy.
So first time you picked up a racket was when? Do you remember?
I think we used them as weapons against each other as kids, like trying to like nail each other. I just remember my brother. So we lived in this cul-de-sac and it had a hill. And my brother was that quintessential jerk, Richard D-I-C-K brother. He was like Chet in Weird Science, that guy. He would literally take like these, our neighbors had what we'd call lava rocks. They were just rocks that they used for their ground covering. And he would take a bunch of them and tell us to go down the street, and he would take them and try to hit us with the rocks with the tennis racket. So the tennis racket
oh my gosh,
had a little bit of a negative meaning in our house. But, every time there was a tennis match, like I grew up with the John McEnroes, Yvonne Lendls, like Martina Navratil, Chris Everett. My dad would be like, I love Chrissy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Chrissy? Okay, Dad, like you really know her.
Yeah.
Steffi Graf was somebody that always, I just thought she was incredible and incredible to watch. I saw her live a couple times. But we grew up with those people, and I felt closer to the game then than I do now. And then our parents put us in like a tennis camp by a local woman. Her name was Melissa Porzak, and she had this tennis camp. And I'll say, when I say camp, it wasn't like maybe what you're thinking. It was pretty recreational. Didn't matter what level you were. We were like 8, 9, 10, somewhere in those ages. And I have to fix this. And so, it was fun more than it was like competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was all day, all week, all summer?
It was a summer camp. It wasn't all day. It was like, 8 to noon. And then that was it. But I think the real thing started for me. It was when my dad would make me play, and then he'd bring Russ out. And then it would just be like an all out competitive. I would see them just fight. Yeah. Like somebody would throw a racket. Like we definitely took after McEnroe in our family.
Yeah.
And then I remember like Russ's friend met us at the court with his little brother who was my age. We were in the same elementary school, and my dad left. So the two boys locked me and my schoolmate in the court and just nailed balls at us. So this sounds terrible. Like you'd think, why would I ever want to play tennis? But there was some fire in me. Like I just wanted to get good to beat my brother. That was the whole thing. And so I really didn't play that much in the years of, I would say, from that tennis camp, 8, 9, 10 to like sophomore year of high school. I didn't play that much. Denise was taking lessons in high school. Like when it was like she decided to take some lessons, and I was in middle school, and she's like, hey, Therese, like, let's go play tennis. And I'm like, sure. And I'm sorry, Denise, I love you. And I know you're going to edit this, but it was no contest. And so it was like, okay, there's
meaning you won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she'd get mad and leave and never talk to me and write mean things about me in her diary and vice versa. And like, there was always a little bit of a competitive thing. But yeah, so I just knew I had something natural, but I didn't take it seriously.
And then, so when you're playing now, do you feel that competitiveness at all, or is it more just fun? Or
well, let me so this is what happened. I was playing PE, the varsity tennis. You played tennis at PE, And the varsity tennis coach was this woman named Mrs. Yarnell. And she goes, "Hey, Therese, I think you should try out for tennis." And I was on the varsity soccer team. I made it as a freshman. And so I thought soccer was going to be my path. But truthfully, in my heart of hearts, I was getting sick of soccer. I wanted to be with a boyfriend. And I, was trying to smoke a cigarette or two. I was just kind of rebelling against sports because I didn't love all my coaches. Like, I felt a couple of my coaches were turnoffs for me. And it wasn't like, Rocky IV. I felt like I had the Russian coach or something. I did, just the stuff they made me personally do just made me hate the sport.
Because they were too military about it, or they didn't care about it?
Militant.
Oh, okay.
And I had a little bit of an upbringing where my mom was tough. My dad was a little easier, but I was kind of sick of that. And so I was starting to get sick of the competitive part, but I had so much fun playing tennis and PE, and it always ended up being me and this guy, and we'd go at it at the very end, and we'd win. I'd win, or we'd play doubles together, we'd win. So I ended up trying out. I actually fell asleep during I slept through the tryout, the first one, because I didn't think I was really going to do it. And Miss Yarnell sent someone to knock on my door because we lived behind the high school, and she's like, "We want you to try out." So I did, and I ended up making varsity. And I started out kind of as a doubles player, which was new to me. And then I ended up playing third single. I was ranked third singles and then did doubles with, that too. And I was surprised myself. I ended up being, this is what someone said to me: "You're 7th in the county in San Diego, based off your winnings." And we ended up winning CIF.
Wow.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
No, that's huge.
Until your dad brings his trumpet to the CIF final and plays it.
So that's what he would do. He would literally bring his trumpet and play. Because you guys tell that story, but I can't really perceive it really. So he's always there with his trumpet.
Yeah. Some people would call it cool, "Oh, your dad's so cool." It was a nightmare because tennis is supposed to be quiet, and it's not supposed to be he'd play a jazz version of the Charge song. So they called me a sacrificial lamb in the newspaper because I lost all my matches. We still won CIF, but I was at the, detriment of me losing all my matches. So, it was just, that was another element, I think, that turned me off. Look, I would do anything to go back and have my dad there with his trumpet. Yeah. At 47, losing my dad, I would do anything to let him be him. But as a kid, especially in your teenage years, when your friends watch you or your boyfriend, the last thing you want is a dad who plays trumpet at your tennis match. But he did. He was my biggest fan. So there's that. So yeah, it was, and then here's what happened. This is not as the big story like your last coma story, but I ended up, they're like, "You need to go and actually take this seriously." And by the way, I had a couple people tried to change my stance. I had an open stance, which I guess back then wasn't.
It wasn't a good thing
normal,
at the time. Yeah.
But it worked for me.
Yeah.
In fact, most of my strokes were wrong. And so I sort of muscled my way through it. And they're like, "You really need to go take the lessons, do the country club thing." So I'm forgetting what the name was, but there was this country club in Escondido that where really good people went. And so I tried, and I realized I wasn't as good, but I got a little bit intimidated and somewhat turned off by the country club.
Okay.
I didn't have the outfits.
Yeah.
I saw people looking me up and down. I was in soccer shorts, not a tennis skirt. I was in a Padre hat, not a visor, because my parents aren't going to go out and buy me all this gear. Yeah. It's not like they had all this cash to do that. So there was a little bit of and I don't know if anyone else has felt this, but at the time, an eliteness to the sport that I almost said, "I don't deserve to be here." And literally shut my mental game, and I didn't want to play. So I didn't actually play my senior year.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it was a little different because my dad was my coach, and the high schools back then were always open.
Yeah.
Now they're not. So we would literally go to high school every day after school. That's what we would do. So I didn't really have that. It was more we were sort of middle class. I think we could have afforded more private lessons. But my dad was my coach, and it gets really expensive, so he would coach us every day. But no, I know what you mean. I mean, I think that's always been sort of the knock on the sport, a little too formal, a little too traditional, if that's a bad thing. I know it could be a good thing, obviously,
let's
too.
Let's be honest, it felt like a little bit of a case system or something like that. I mean, I'm a half Asian white girl in, a country club that no one looked like me.
Yeah.
And so I felt a little, you tell yourself stories, and I had, I'd experienced some things like that just growing up in the town I grew up. And I just felt like, okay, that's not for me. There's more people that play soccer that look like me.
I get you.
So it just felt like, I don't know. I just told myself it's not for you. And then as I got older, I ended up, playing a little USTA. I got in and out of it pretty fast. We won our mixed doubles. My partner was some dude I met off Craigslist. He looked like Garfield. He was weird, but he was good. And he was like, you could be a 5.0. I could train you. Because he said he trained people at UCLA. Like,
oh, wow.
But I think that was a lie, because I don't know. It wasn't like I Googled a lot back then.
Yeah.
But he really did make me better. And we won our mixed I found the plaque the other day. It was like 4.5.
Wow.
But singles wise, I didn't play 4. I was just playing USTA as a doubles.
Doubles, yeah.
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 And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when I got to my 20s, 30s, I ended up moving to Arizona for a business partnership, and I joined a country club, and I felt it again. It was very cliquey, and
What age was this?
I moved to Arizona at like 30, 31, and
why did you join it?
I wanted to play tennis. I moved to Arizona. I knew no one. I was good enough to play. I'd been out of it for a year or so, but I had this boyfriend that he didn't play tennis, but we got into it, and he was an Olympic baseball player. So he was just a good athlete. We were playing 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So we got so many people to play.
Oh, wow.
We had these courts that we just took over in LA, and keep doing that. And we just had a great time. So when I moved to Arizona, I missed that community. And so I tried to join this country club, and they weren't having it. So yeah, I think I experienced some, where I look at you guys in your community here in Murrieta and Temecula. It's so fun. Like everyone's like cool.
Oh, it's been so lucky, because I remember when we moved out here, I wasn't playing at all. Actually, I haven't picked up a racket in, I don't even know when, like 18, 19 years. And then so the local country club, Murrieta Country Club, I called and said, hey, I just want to hit with someone. And I remember going there, I go, oh, I don't even have a racket. I've been playing tennis my whole life, and I didn't bring a racket. Something was like, I haven't done it in so long. And so, but once they let me borrow a racket, I bought some shoes at like Dick's or whatever it was. And I didn't even have tennis shoes, and I was wearing basketball shorts, because I haven't played literally in many, many years. And once I started hitting again, I just was like addicted.
It's so fun.
Yeah. And then I got just so lucky, like you said, because the community is what we really fell in love with, because Denise has so many friends now because of it. I have so many friends now because of it. And it's like, I don't know, it just opened us up to enjoying something different within our marriage, but also outside our marriage. Like, you can do something outside and have fun, but at the same time, we can play together, and her friends are my friends are her friends, kind of thing.
We love seeing Denise this happy, and having a hobby that she actually loved before she knew you. And I think she just didn't have the people to play with. Yeah. And so it's like so nice when you find your people. And tennis has become much more universal. And I think a lot of the players kind of broke the rules too. Like when you see like Venus and Serena and like the outfits people wear, and it's become a little more colorful, interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, that thing.
I keep doing this.
No, I got to buy better connections. Every single person has a connection problem. Sorry.
It's because I'm using my hands, but it's just really nice to see the sport evolve. Yeah. And now I really, going back in my head, or, if I knew what I knew then, I would have stuck with it. I wouldn't have, part of it was like I was intimidated by it instead of embracing it. I was like, well, I could never be like that. I'm not going to be able to measure up and look the part, and just the dumb things you think about as an insecure teenager.
It's funny how you're focused more on that, and then you started talking about the fashion sort of side of it, but that's you.
That's me.
Because I guess it's not really fashion industry, right? It's not, because that's clothing, right?
I've been in the beauty industry 20 plus years, and I always knew I wanted a beauty brand. I was always wearing like not a full face of makeup, but I'd wear lip gloss on the court. Like a couple of us did.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I always felt like, you know, it was nice. It was fun to be girly while being a tough competitive athlete. Like I liked both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know you don't watch much tennis right now, but I wonder really who embraces that as a pro tennis player. I mean, there's obviously people who are more into fashion as pro tennis players, but a lot of it's pretty boring. And the weird thing is, like, if you see like the guys in their Nike outfits, they're pretty horrible. Have you been seeing that?
You know, it's nice that not everything just has to be your don't get me wrong, I like a white traditional, you know, fun, but I like that things are a little more fun.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, did you see that movie Air with like the making of Michael Jordan's shoe?
Oh, yes, I did.
Like there had to be some rule breaking to do that. And
that's right, because they had a certain amount of red that can be in the shoe. Okay, yes.
And
yes.
I feel like when the players, it has to come from them, really. It has to have a groundswell from within.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has happened to golf and tennis and like these more traditional.
Well, just even like 2 years ago, Kyrgios wore his Nike Air Jordans walking out to Wimbledon. And later on, he was like destroyed for it and said, you were told you can only wear white shoes because Wimbledon's white shoes, white shorts, white shirt. And people were like, why would you dare do that? He's like, why wouldn't I? You know, and find me if you want. So it was just even that question, he was like shocked, like, oh, I can't even wear a different color shoe out here. So it's really, really strange.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, well, even, you know, from the rackets on, everything's evolved, and that's a good thing. And I think people's personalities come through much more. The only time I haven't seen real like personalities come. Have you ever seen did you see Mickelson against Tiger Woods in that HBO?
Oh, when they were mic'd up?
I thought it was going to be so fun to see their personalities truly shine. It was the most boring.
Was it boring?
So
I didn't
boring.
get to see it.
But I feel like the personalities come through now. Through the clothes, through, you know, it's fun to watch that, you know, where before it was like, better not say anything, but McEnroe pretty much.
No, but you're right. Even recently now, they're questioning the players on, hey, should we allow the crowd to get more into it? Because obviously tennis is, if you're in the crowd, you can't even sneeze. Like cell phone rings, oh, shut up, you jerk. But now they're trying to do stuff to incorporate more of the crowd. And they were even asking pro players like, no, we need this to be more like a basketball game, more like a soccer game. Like there needs to be noise all the time. Because I get it, though, when it's quiet and then there's a noise, it messes you up.
Yeah, I need white noise.
Yes.
I do feel like there's certain traditionalists and players that want it how it is. But I do think you want the crowd to be engaged. You know, you want people to want to be there. And these rivalries help, but also seeing something that's different or you know, seeing something change is always fun to see.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. How do you feel? Actually, I want to ask you a couple questions since I'm your sister-in-law. You seem to always have a little bit of a game face. In poker, you do it. In conversations where I might ask you questions that make you go a little bit more, you're like an onion that I haven't fully peeled.
So when you say game face, you mean
I feel like, you have your game. Like I play tennis. Like you don't let much get to you.
Okay.
You know, you kind of are resilient like that, which is a good thing. I don't see you get upset and I don't see you get super exuberant. You're sort of like right now. You're sort of but I know there's a lot happening in there. So when do you ever let all your things like colors fly? Like I've never seen you deviate much.
So here's the real interesting part of your question. Only recently, I've really been trying to go deeper into that question for myself, because I really feel that when I'm the best, I'm letting more emotion out. And so I find myself, calming myself down and not letting myself, like exactly what you said. It's actually pretty spot on. I try to find myself not getting upset, but then when I don't let myself get upset, I don't also have those highs of like joy or like pumping. Like I'm not that player on the court. Like, come on, like that kind of stuff. But I remember when I've done that, and it's been extremely rare. When I've done that, it's my best tennis by far. Like, and there's something about allowing me just to be me, because I think it is a sort of like, I shouldn't be this way. Like, I think it's rude, or I don't want to be rude to you, my opponent, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's only certain times when I really just go out there, and it's in poker too, actually, when I'm on the table talking, confident, maybe a little cocky, throwing in some jokes. That's when I'm really on. I'm watching you, I'm watching what you're doing. Or if I'm like a little submissive and I'm just quiet and trying to be nice, I'm not playing my best poker. And I feel it's the same exact way on tennis.
Have you always been like that as a kid too? Like what was that from?
Yeah, it's a good question. Truthfully, I don't know. I really feel that, gosh, I've never even thought of it going back that far, to be honest. I've only tried examining the present. But if I try to examine myself, oh gosh, it has to be something with my dad. Let's be real.
I mean, we're talking about dads.
Yeah,
It's Father's Day today.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Happy Father's Day.
Oh my gosh, we are.
But I
Happy
feel
Father's
like
Day.
so much sports of our mannerisms or our drive, if you really peel back the onion, can really come from that parental, either the support of or in opposition of or both at different times could be driving us.
Yeah, I mean, and so before I maybe say something, because my dad's been watching these, but I have the most supportive parents, the most loving parents.
They
in
are.
a split second, they would do anything for me, give me all their money, come and change a tire. That kind of parents. Literally the best parents in the world, I feel. But at the same time, when I was young, I did feel a little like, I don't know. I'm now thinking back on it. There was a lot of missed emotion for me because it was very harsh, like coaching sometimes, like doing push-ups, like being told to do push-ups during your practice, or maybe even like during play. I remember, like, if I would look at my dad, I'm playing a match. I shouldn't be thinking about what my dad's thinking about.
Yeah.
And so I remember just sort of closing myself a little. And I think that sort of progressed into me now. But it also helps in my job too, where I can't be so emotional.
You're an attorney.
Yeah. So representing people, I can't really, I sometimes can't feel so emotionally attached to them, because then I feel maybe I'll be a little biased for the wrong things. Do you know what I'm saying? So I have to sort of sometimes detach myself, but at the same time care about them. So it's really tough.
It's tough. And to your point about your dad, he's always so kind. That's how it was more back then. Even when I read Agassi's book, and there
awesome.
was always an intense parent or an intense coach. And that's kind of what was happening with me. I had this really intense couple coaches that made me take my shoes off, kick heavier balls. And I was the only one that they made stay after practice to do that. And I'm like, why am I singled out? But looking back, it was sort of that, again, Rocky IV reference where, you have to train harder, and you have to train your mind, and, but I also think that stunted something in me too, where I just was like, I don't want to do this. It was getting too much, where I didn't know what I was processing. And then I would take it home. I'd see my dad, and then I'd take it home.
Yeah.
And it kind of did hurt our relationship, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to have that intensity, and then also let him be my dad. I don't know how to explain it.
Do you have any feelings of and this is funny because I had a conversation with my oldest daughter about this recently, and we were talking about regret or something. And I'm trying to tie this in because it made me think of it. So I hope this does connect here. But my oldest daughter was asking about regret and things like that. And I started realizing that the only time I have regret, it's not because of something I did and failed, or something maybe necessarily I didn't even try. I know some people say, if you don't try, you have regret. My regrets in my past were always that I didn't, sort of stand up for myself when I should have. I didn't speak up when I should have, because it makes you feel small later. If you were in a situation where if you didn't speak up and someone sort of takes advantage of you in a weird way, later on, that regret's there because you feel a little small and taken advantage of. And I feel the connection is in tennis, sometimes I'm not letting my true feeling out. And later on, I don't regret my strokes. Like I didn't hit a good forehand today. I usually hit a pretty good forehand. But there's something about I'm regretting that I didn't let myself like fully just, I don't know what. What's
Yeah.
the word?
I know. It's probably why I asked this question. Like I'm so stoked to have you in the family for many reasons. Tennis being one of them, maybe, not the first one, obviously, but it's awesome to watch you play. And the minute I think I'm good, I remember about you and I'm like, I'm not that good at all. Never was, never will be. You do have a gazelle, like the way you play. And I see you hit with, people that are better and not, you guys like make each other better. You have it all. I think the thing that if I was going to do a critique, it's always been like, yeah, there's not that emotional burst.
Yeah.
There's never anything,
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, is he connecting to that thing?
Yeah.
And I don't know, because I've had those issues too, where I haven't been able to say everything I want to say or do those things in business too. Like when you meet certain types of people, like I'm always having to ask for money because I am raising money, and sometimes I automatically give them the power. Some things like that, and then I feel small, like I'm begging, and instead of looking at it as an equal exchange and an opportunity and an investment, that kind of thing. Sometimes those old programs run. So yeah, it would be like, I think about like Serena even hitting a ball, and like how, like I've had a coach tell me, Serena hits the ball, just like grunt, do the thing. I can't do it.
So
like I can't.
Yeah, because it's almost like it feels a little weird, right?
And unnatural, and like embarrassing, like I'm
embarrassed.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's not having the confidence.
Yeah. So when you said that right now about your job, it really does I'm really glad we're talking about this because this is all I've been thinking about lately. I don't even know why I wanted to start the podcast. I just wanted to do something else to be passionate about because I'm passionate about this. And so I've been really feeling better, but also at the same time, I feel like I'm trying to examine other parts of my life where I'm not doing this. And so you talking about your job where you felt a little small when you're asking for money, all you had to do, I think you hit it around the nose. All you had to do was think of it differently.
Yeah.
It's not that you're begging for money. It's that you're giving someone an opportunity to invest in you and your company. And once you think of it that way, you're now on equal footing with this person. I think I have to think of it that way with tennis, which is sometimes it's weird. I shouldn't even be playing sports if I think this way. But sometimes if I beat someone in a game, I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
So shouldn't I flip the script and go, no, they're trying to improve just like I'm trying to improve. Losing helps you improve.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have to think of it differently where it's not me feeling bad because then I start to shrink. I start to not play as good. I start to not be as passionate.
You can do that with me. You're allowed to do that with me.
Yeah.
Feel bad.
I feel bad with you.
No, it's true. I feel like it's some old programs that come out in sports. They come out in these situations and business and sports, and you kind of root for the underdog, and then you become sort of, like you said, smaller, and that's not the example you want to set. No one wants to lose to someone that's too nice to them.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Remember that this made me just now think of this song in the 90s, and I recently just downloaded it like a month ago, which is crazy. Do you remember Enigma?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay. And the Return to Innocence?
Totally.
You do remember that song? Okay. Sort of a corny song. You probably wouldn't be listening to it alone in the car with the windows down. But in the shower, you're probably singing it, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of song.
It's hard to sing to, though.
Oh, totally.
I dare you to do it right now. I dare you.
Definitely not. But there's this one part, and I actually remember it when I was young because I didn't understand it. But like a month ago, it just made me think. I'm like, what an interesting quote. This one part of the song says, "Don't be too proud to be strong." That's the quote.
Yeah.
And I'm literally like, this makes no sense. What does that even mean? You can't, why would you be too proud to be strong? Like, isn't strength like a virtue, right?
Yeah.
So why would you be, why would the song be telling you don't be too proud to be strong? And then it actually sort of hit me.
Yeah, you kind of just said it.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, this is a weird proudness thing where I'm trying not to hurt their feelings. I'm trying to show everyone, look, guys, I'm not getting mad on the court. And it's something more about like me, like instead of being, no, you should be strong because people want to see you be strong and they want to be inspired by you.
Well, and on this podcast, like it's those things that people are going to want to listen to. It's getting, not just getting it out of your guests, but getting it out of you too.
Yeah.
Because you'll say I'm passionate and you'll say it just like that.
Yeah.
I'm passionate.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really?
Oh, really? Yeah.
I want to see it in your face.
Yeah.
You have a great face.
Yeah.
You can show the passion.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like giving yourself permission to be in your fullness and in your power. And that's been hard for me my entire life. And I think it was hard for my parents. And I think it, you know, it's like my mom wanted perfection because she's kind of has that. But then, you know, I was almost scared of her too. So it's like I wanted her to be proud, but I was also scared. Like, it's just crazy. But a lot of that did play out. It plays out in adult life if you don't figure it out in all sorts of ways. But sports, the one regret I have is quitting. I quit. I couldn't take it mentally. So in some ways, what your dad did probably strengthened your mental game where I just kind of fell apart in my head. And then I'm like, whatever, I have a boyfriend. I want to focus on that. Whatever, I'll just get a job. You know, it was like, there's so many other things I want to do, but I still have this hunger to be an athlete. Now I'm injured and I have back issues, all the things. But there was a good window of 10 years where I just was sad because I gave up. Yeah.
Man, I mean, you're making me think a lot, Therese. And
Sorry.
I'm not joking around. But you're right though, that this is the part why some podcasts you really just listen to and you don't care, almost in a weird way, what they're talking about. As long as they're passionate about what they're talking about, you find it interesting. And I think that's why, like the Joe Rogan podcast, just to say it because everyone sort of knows about it, he has a different guest on every week about totally different subjects. It's interesting because the guest is passionate about their craft, whatever that is, whether it's UFOs or whether it's science or math, but they're passionate about it. And then the host is interested about it and it just becomes interesting.
Right. And I've listened to Smartless where it's Jason Bateman and a couple of, I'm forgetting their names at the moment, but what they do is they just talk to each other and let people hear. And then and then someone brings in a guest and it's a surprise to the other two.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It's kind of cool because you don't know, it's not rehearsed.
Yeah.
But I feel like, at the end of the day, people just want to connect. And so whether it's the community of tennis, whether it's any sport or any sort of anything you do, when you feel isolated or small, it sucks, And so what I feel like tennis did for me at a time in my life was make me feel part of something fun and cool. And, more people started to come into our lives. I learned more about people. I started going on trips with these people. I started learning other skills through, it's that community piece that I think everyone wants to connect to.
Yeah.
And then in addition, really allowing yourself to be in your full, and what does that take? And, because that thing I mentioned before about asking for money for investors, by the way, I have to okay, every day, every time, you're probably going to hear no, but it's, it's really about the exchange. It's you have something to offer. I have to put myself up every single time. And it's still hard.
Do you think, and I'll tell you how I feel after, and I think I know the answer, but I want to hear what you think. Do you think everyone thinks that way or is it just you? Do you think you're the only one that has to give yourself a pep talk?
No, I think there's so many people. I mean, look, I've done a lot of self-work over the years, whether that's therapy, whether that's, reading the right books or the ones that resonate, and then doing practicing those things. Even in marriage is, no one said that was easy. I have to really practice these mindset tricks on myself. No, I think it's constant. And the minute you think you're good, you're not. It's constant. And it's a good thing because our whole goal, I think, on this planet is to evolve and to learn and to inspire and to be of service. And so that means you have to learn more about people.
Yeah.
And how you tick. And
the thing I think I'm more focused on is when I do the pep talks prior to a tennis match, I find a little bit of insecurity leaking in, because I find the pep talk is sometimes I'm trying to pep myself up, right? The pep talk. I'm trying to talk myself into it. I'm trying to listen to the right music. I got my headphones on, something, just trying to get pumped up. But I find sometimes the pep talk is a little too much, and I find myself being a little insecure. Like, why do I need this?
Does your pep talk sound like a negative voice, or does it sound like a attaboy, you got this,
I don't know, to be honest. I have to think more about that. But it must be more a little like, come on, like, don't do what you did last time, maybe. Because that's more negative.
That's more negative. That was, if I'm really honest, that's my pep talk. It's like, come on, you know what you're doing. You know what to do. Like, why are you doing this? And then I check to see, then I have a little bit of like a weird, like, Nomar Garcia-Parra has to like do all those things. Yeah. I have a little of that too. Yeah. Like, I'm checking if my laces are like Nadal, all the things, the Nadal stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's never like, you're amazing, Therese, you've got this. Like, it's like, I don't even know how to say that even out loud. So I think the negative self-talk has always been the motivation. Like I said earlier, like just the wanting to beat my older brother, like just that. Well, and that wasn't for a good reason. It was because I hated him and I wanted to beat him. Now I love him, and I still haven't beaten him, but it's sports to me has always had a little bit of that.
Do you think it would be beneficial to have a hype man going into any sporting event? Boxers literally have a person behind the scenes.
I do.
Yeah. It almost makes sense, right?
Look at Tony Robbins, how many people go to his seminars. I mean, I feel like it'd be nice to have that come naturally, but if it doesn't, then
someone there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's why somebody, always wants someone in the audience for them that they can look at and just be grounded again.
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd be cool to have that.
I mean, I wonder because if you can just like write down on a piece of paper, like all the things you would want to have a perfect scenario going into a tennis match, I guess, because we're talking about tennis, that would be one of them, actually. Some sort of person there, almost like what movie is that? Oh, Nacho Libre. Remember when they were massaging the evil guy? What's his name? Oh my gosh.
I can't remember any names from that movie, but yeah.
Ramses. And then he's getting a massage. He goes, Ramses is number one. Ramses' muscles are number one. Like that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just a big pep talk.
I think so. But you know what we would do, because we're not used to it? We'd be like, shut up. No, we're not. Like,
no, you're right.
You're dumb. Like, do it to him, not to me. He probably needs it more than I do.
You're right.
That's what would happen.
You're right.
Until like we train ourselves to be worthy and deserving.
Yes.
We're always going to like that.
See, that's interesting too, because I always think of it as training myself to be like a killer, but it's more like just training yourself to feel deserving of the win, of the success.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
No, I know.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And then to know that when you do win, that it was deserved, and that other person needs to know what it feels like to lose and learn to be a loser.
Yeah.
Because there's
for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not a loser.
Yeah.
You lost a game.
Yep.
And then you can learn from it, because if you never lost, like, you're not going to improve, Yeah. But I feel like it's a lot mental. Tennis is always mental, for me, because it didn't matter how great a shape I was. If I had an off day or if I wasn't feeling good in my skin, I just sucked.
No, I'm totally with you. The days where like something happened the night before or work's on my mind, or I felt like a little like I should have done better with that file at work or something like that. Even that slight insecurity translated to me during the tennis match, and it just wouldn't be the same me.
No, that slight insecurity was enough for me to quit sports when I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have, but I didn't have the tools. I didn't have that positive voice in my head, certainly not then, to have had the, just be patient with myself. And but most of those coaches back then were 80s coaches that were just like, you suck, you don't score, you're out of here.
Yeah.
So it was those sort of, and don't get me wrong, those are also motivational, but it's not being able to discern worthiness. And I think that's the thing is like, you suck enough. Do I suck? Those are the voices, you know, and I still have that when I play tennis, if and when I play anymore. But
isn't that interesting though, that you, or maybe even me, if we heard that, we would take it one way, but there's probably another kid out there that would almost use that as the chip on their shoulder to strive to be better.
I think that that's true, but I always think there's a glass ceiling you're going to hit eventually. Whether it happens on the court or in your personal life, something's got to give there, because at some point it caves in.
Yeah.
You know?
So do you think, because I'm experiencing this with Isla now, like even outside, just hitting tennis balls with her on the street, if I'm correcting her a little too much, I can see her little face, like sort of getting sad, and she just wants dad to be proud of her and play with her. And like, so I find myself just saying, good job. And then she's naturally enjoying the sport more. So it's even outside, it's sort of hard for me to try to be the right coach and the right.
And she's
dad.
8.
Yeah.
So by 8, I had those coaches, and I was, you know, and I had this competitive, I think I just had that innately. I'm one of 5 kids. Like you were always vying for your place on the couch, the remote, the front seat of the car. You know, you were just always wanting, you know, my parents couldn't afford 5 things for everyone. So it was like that one thing, and then you have to fight for it. Right. So, you know, I think we all had this like competitive edge. I think you either have that or you don't at some point. But at 8, it is interesting for me to see when I go to because I don't have kids, my nieces and nephews' games, like how nice the coaches are, and like PC and good at a girl. And like my mind goes, what the heck? Like you should hear what I'm thinking in my head that I can't say because these are 8-year-old kids. But you should hear, and so I think there's something wrong with me, but I'd be like, God, I can't watch this. It's like they're all bunching in the middle. They need to be on the side, the community. Like, it's crazy. So I think, to your point, like what you're doing is probably the healthy thing. It would be interesting to like sort of unpack that more with someone who knows, because at what point does it turn competitive and that you do need a little fire under your butt? Like, at what point does that happen?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a thing I struggle with being a parent too, because when someone sees like your kid get a scraped knee or something, and then you go and say, oh my gosh, there's always a person that says like, throw a little dirt on it. And I get the expression totally, right? Because you want them to toughen up. The real world's going to be very tough. So they need to experience that with you, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like so hard to not be their protector, right? And to like pick them up and all that kind of stuff. Oh, now the dog came in the door. So it's interesting that I'm having a real tough time like figuring out even that part. But that's being a parent, I guess.
I think that's being a parent, and I don't know if anyone will ever really figure that out. But I think you're doing a great job. I see 2 very well-adjusted humans. They're really sweet, kind people. And that's you know, but in terms of sports, I haven't seen them enough in a sporting competitive so I wouldn't know. But when I see like even our niece Callista, she has this competitive edge, and it's fun to see that. So I just don't know if it's innate or if it's taught or if it's both, or like I'd be interesting to have somebody on here that knows.
Yeah, that would be a good conversation.
When do you go from kid to competitor?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. It seems like it's sort of half and half in a weird way. Like you need someone to be there to help you along, but at the same time, you need that drive inside too. Because if you have just one or the other, maybe won't work. Not really sure.
I mean, I was surrounded by other people that had it too. So whether it's siblings or other sports people, like, you know, we had some really great teams growing up. I mean, my high school soccer team was better than my college soccer team.
Oh, wow.
Like we grew up in a very athletic, like driven town. So it was nice to have that. But at the same time, that negative just got to me.
Yeah. Well,
I know. Now we have people in the room.
yeah, little ones came in the room when they shouldn't have come in. But I mean, I really enjoyed talking with you, Therese. Yes, the time's been 50 minutes. Thank you.
Me too. You know, I feel like I'm going to talk to you in podcast mode all the time because it's nice to connect.
Yeah.
I mean, as a sister-in-law, like you don't have to be BFFs with your family, like in-laws, but it is nice to have a closeness that we all have and to like get to know each other and connect that way too.
Not to talk about hold on a second. Not to talk about like cell phones and things, but it's funny. My daughter that just graduated high school, she said they didn't allow them to use cell phones during the graduation, and she goes, "We were all just talking." So it's so crazy. But you're right. This kind of stuff needs to happen more often. It shouldn't just happen when we put ourselves in podcast mode. Like there's nothing wrong with like going to get a beer together and like putting our cell phones away.
Right.
And, like seeing what we talk about.
And actually being present and being like curious.
Yes.
Like naturally curious about each other. I think that's the thing. So I know we've talked a lot about random things, but I think the underlying thing is like the community piece, the mental health aspect of being a competitive sports, athlete, and then also like this desire to want to continue to learn about yourself.
Yeah.
And to allow yourself to be in its full glory, full expression. It's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
And then to allow yourself to be, what's the word? What's that word? Exposed. What's that word? Like allow yourself to be exposed a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I'm like, Anthony, you have a poker face. I think we did play a game of questions and I could just feel you weren't fully answering everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was, but I really do understand you a little bit more after.
Well, the funny thing is, just to wrap it up, sort of like, I actually will counsel people to do that. Like if I hear Denise talk with someone, they'll ask her about something and I know this might sound weird, she's a little too open. Later on, I'll go, babe, like, like you don't really know that person. Be a little more, hold it back a little more. Maybe you shouldn't be telling them all these things. Then I start thinking to myself, like, yeah, I don't really open myself up like that, which I should.
Well, it's interesting you chose podcasting in this part
true.
of your life, because I think the attorney thing, I forget sometimes that you're an attorney when I think about you as my brother-in-law. But that makes total sense. And now you're choosing something that you have to actually be vulnerable and be curious.
Oh my gosh, this dog is cracking me up.
See, vulnerable and curious.
Yep. Well, since the little kid and the dog ruined our podcast, but that was awesome, Therese.
No, it was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No, that was so cool. So let me end it here, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, I give everyone a little gift.
Oh.
Rock and Rod Laver just reminded me of your dad for some reason, so I found Rod Laver card for you. So there's your gift. The Rock and Rod. I know, it reminds me of your dad, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Therese.
Thank you.